Where's Chris? That's all right. Okay, good evening to all. And tonight is our town board meeting of Wednesday, November 12th, 2014. And I'd like to ask our clerk, Christian Sampson, to call the roll.
Councilman and Deputy Supervisor Withers.
Present.
Councilman Ullman.
Here.
Councilman Friedman.
Here.
Councilwoman Charles. Supervisor St. Lawrence.
Here, I'd like to ask Deputy Supervisor Withers to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're just going to take a couple items out of order very quickly. Just a couple personnel items and also a donation. So we'll do, are both, is Ray here too?
No, Ray's not.
Okay. Then why don't we do the donation first, Linda? Oh, Ray's here. Okay, Linda, you can come up and Chris can go and get the, I'd like to take on the agenda items number 3 under personnel, A, B, C, and D, and our Director of Personnel, Linda Condon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Item 3A is a resolution to reclassify the position of senior clerk to senior clerk French Creole speaking in the tax office.
Moved by
Withers?
Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries unanimously. Now that we have reclassed that position, I imagine you have someone to fill that position.
I do. Item B is a resolution to appoint Reno Santon as senior clerk French Creole speaking in the tax office effective Monday.
Moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Come on up, Ray. Ray has worked for the town, I think, for 2 decades, right, Ray? Congratulations. Ray, I say to you, mwen content vini parler avec nous aujourd'hui. And it truly is an honor. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Item 3C
Yes.
is a resolution to reclassify the position of assistant automotive mechanic in the central garage to automobile mechanic 1 in central garage.
Moved by
Charles.
Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Friedman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
And the last, item 3D, is a resolution to appoint Sean Spillman, auto mechanic 1 in central garage.
Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilman Friedman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Congratulations, Sean. Come on up. Congratulations, Sean, and I see your wife is here, and congratulations to your wife as well. And I know that the two of you are going off to Disneyland, so I think that's fantastic. So you could actually be excused now. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. Go home and get your rest of your packing. And Ray as well, thank you very much, and congratulations. We have one item. I'll recognize our town clerk, Christian Sampson, who is actually president of all the town clerks in the state of New York, of their association. And I'll turn it over for this item on the agenda, which is item 6B.
Well, Mr. Supervisor, Julius Graithman is here in the audience. I'm going to ask Julius to come up. Is Mrs. Graithman here? Is Mrs. Graithman here?
Oh, no, she's a little under the weather.
Tell her we miss her. Just about a week ago, and I'll let Julius tell the story. As you know, Mr. Graithman is also the chairman of the Rockland County Sewer Commission. But a while back, he and his brother had an interesting assignment, and I'm going to let Mr. Graithman describe it and then make his presentation to the town board.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes, Mr.
members
Gray.
of the town board, one of them is one of my former commissioners, Brendel, and ladies and gentlemen, the contribution that I'm making is a map that was printed by myself and my brother when we were younger in the printing business, and this is a very historic map for Rockland County, and a very historic map really for the town of Ramapo, because what this map is, it's a landmarks of Rockland County, and those red dots that you see on the map are all the landmarks that run back to the 1700s and some back even further. One of them in particular, which the town of Ramapo owns, is the Sloat House, and is delineated on the map in the lower right, in the lower center of this map. But there are lots of sites that are very historical for all of Rockland County when it first started. I've had this in my possession for over 25 years, and we're kind of getting some of the stuff that I could donate into other hands rather than have it in a closet rolled up. So I hope that the town accepts this map and has it displayed properly. And I invite the audience, when the map is displayed properly, to come and take a look at it. Take a look at some of the areas, perhaps even an area where you live now, and you see what it was called back then in the 1700s. So thank you. Thank you to the town for taking this historic map and displaying it for the public.
And the red dots are the sandstone houses. And the donation of the map is free, and it'll be about $3,000 to frame it and put it under glass and everything. Thank you, Jules. And it's great for you to preserve the history. And I also, when it comes to history, I want you to know everybody in this room, everybody in this county will never forget that you lost your son on 9/11, your son David. We pray for him. We think of him all the time. God bless you and your wife, Ruth.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will open up the public hearing. I know people want to be able to speak, and so, Council, do we have all postings on this public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. With the board's permission, I'll read into the record the notice of tonight's public hearing. We have received a number of documents which we will deem as exhibits for the hearing. So I will begin as follows. Notice is hereby given by the Town Board of the Town of Ramapo that pursuant to the provisions of the Town Law of the State of New York, a public hearing will be held at 8:00 p.m. at the Ramapo Town Hall, 237 Route 59, Suffern, New York, 10901, on the 12th day of November 2014, to consider the adoption of a local law entitled Proposed Local Law Amending Local Law Number 10-2004 Zoning, as amended, to change the zoning map of the town of Ramapo, petitions of 171 North Pascack Road Corporation, and Muncie Lumber Company, and an amendment to the comprehensive plan of the town of Ramapo. A copy of the comprehensive plan amendment and the local law, and the comprehensive plan amendment is entitled Pascack Ridge, a copy which has been on file in the office of the town clerk of the town of Ramapo, 237 Route 59, Suffern, New York. Notice is hereby further given that all interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard. We have received a number of documents which they will be deemed as exhibits for purposes of the hearing, which will commence tonight and be continued on to other nights. Exhibit number 1 is the notice of the adjourned public hearing on proposed zoning law amendment and comprehensive plan amendment. Exhibit number 2 is the affidavit of publication in the Journal News, the town's official newspaper. Exhibit number 3 is the affidavit of posting by the town clerk. Exhibit 4 is the affidavit of posting and mailing provided by one of the 2 petitioners, 171 North Pascack Road. Exhibit number 5 is the affidavit of posting and mailing by the other petitioner, that's by Muncie Lumber Company. Exhibit number 6 is a copy of the proposed local law to change the zoning map. Exhibit number 7 is the proposed comprehensive plan amendment. Exhibit number 8 is a letter received from the Village of Spring Valley Office of Building Inspector dated August 3rd, 2014. Exhibit number 9 is a letter received with an attached resolution from the Clarkstown Planning Board dated November 5th, 2014. We have, as exhibit number 10, a memorandum from the Planning Board of the town of Ramapo regarding 171 North Pascack Road zone change. Exhibit number 11 is a memorandum from the Ramapo Planning Board regarding the petition of Muncie Lumber Company zone change. Exhibit number 12 is the zone change petition of 171 Pascack Road. Exhibit number 13 is the zone change petition of Muncie Lumber Company. Exhibit number 14 is the general municipal law review of the County of Rockland, which was only received this afternoon, and copies have been distributed by to the board this evening. And finally, exhibit number 14 is a copy of Clarkstown Town Board Resolution number 488-2014. With those comments made as part of the record, we're now able to open up the public hearing. Traditionally, Mr. Supervisor, we've invited the applicants to make initial presentations, but the order is certainly subject to the board's discretion.
I want to welcome everybody again. Our town clerk is going to hand out forms for anybody that wants to speak. You can just fill it out. When we do get to the portion of speaking, we're going to have, the first speaker will be George Homan, and then Deputy Supervisor Shirley Lasker, and then County Legislator Chris Carey, and then it will be open up to the public. All you have to do is just fill that out and just put your name and your address. I do want to make it clear to people that this is an application that has been presented to this board. This board has not made any judgment on this, nor would it be appropriate for this board to make any prejudgment. You all may remember in cases where the process wasn't followed or a town prejudged. A recent case was in Orangetown, and Orangetown was sued and lost $8 million. So what we do in this process, in this public hearing, we'll hear from the applicant, we'll hear from our planner, from Frederick P. Clark. We will hear from all of you. There will be no vote on any of these amendments tonight. We will hear from the public. We want answers to all the questions that people are going to bring up. And we will have further public hearings, which we will announce, 2, maybe 3, as many as it takes in order to get the information, and whether it's about drainage or traffic or parking, whatever it may be. And so that's how the process is. So I don't want people to think that the board is taking some action. This was brought to this board. We will listen to the applicant, as you will. We will ask questions. After you've asked questions, I'm sure members of the board will have some questions, and then we will adjourn the public hearing to future dates. So that's the groundwork. So with that being said, we will ask the applicant to come up and make a presentation, and then we will have our planners make any statements, and then we'll go right into the public hearing.
Mr. Supervisor, we have two separate petitions by adjoining landowners. My suggestion would be that we ask for the attorney for Muncie Lumber to perhaps begin.
Okay? And we'd like you to be able to put the boards in a way that people can see them in the audience, and so that our camera, Jack, as long as you can see them as well. Just turn it a little bit toward the camera, that's it.
Ready?
Go.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Board. Ryan Carbon, 11 Tower Drive, Pomona, for the applicant, Muncie Lumber. Good evening. Good evening to you and to the members of the public. Just to amplify a little bit of the summary that was provided by your counsel, Muncie Lumber submitted a petition for a comprehensive plan amendment and the zone change. We own about 20 acres located at the intersection of three municipalities: the town of Ramapo, the village of Spring Valley, and the town of Clarkstown. The site we're talking about and those areas around it, for those folks who have been in town for a long time, was a critical part of Ramapo's recreation summer resort heyday in the 1950s and the 1960s. My mother was actually a counselor at the White House Hotel on Pascack Road in the summer of 1959. So for those of us who've been around a while, I grew up in the neighborhood too. So this used to be a part of our recreation economy. Certain portions of that hotel area have been developed, or the old White House now has semi-attached housing across the street, and this area has laid fallow. I would urge the board to take notice. Not every place that used to have a bustling summer resort economy has fared as well as the town of Ramapo. And you can go to the old hotels in Sullivan County and still see the heaps of trash laying there on the site. There was a photo essay in the New York Times of all the garbage still from the old Grossingers just laying there like debris. And that's certainly not a model for redevelopment of any particular site. So you look at what's going on in this particular region of town, you look at the housing trends, and it becomes an appropriate site for multifamily redevelopment. Just noting conceptually, there was some discussion in the press and in some of the comment letters about single-family versus multifamily housing. I wanted to point out to the board there was a report that came out last week. In 2006, only 17% of residential construction in the United States of America was multifamily. That number is now in 2014 35% across the country. The real estate economy, the financing, is no longer oriented in major fashion towards the development of single-family homes, particularly not in suburban areas which are in proximity to urban cores such as Rockland. So the trends, when we speak about housing, obviously there is a particular need, in the Rockland County Department of Planning, even though it disapproves of the zone change, it noted the need for increased housing approvingly in their general municipal review, actually suggested the board consider somewhat less density of 8 units per acre as opposed to what we're proposing, but there's clearly a demand for housing which legitimizes updating the comprehensive plan, and multifamily housing is in vogue as a development scenario. So what do we find in this particular region? And if I could hand to your clerk, Mr. Supervisor, we've provided a map which we have up for the public to see on the board there, which is a reflection of the various densities that are in the vicinity. As I said, we're at the intersection of a number of different municipal entities, and interestingly, you have a whole bunch of different housing types. About a quarter of a mile from the site, you have developments in the town of Clarkstown which substantially exceed 10 units per acre. One of them is up to 25 units per acre in the town of Clarkstown. You have multifamily units in the adjacent village of Spring Valley of varying densities as well. So you have numerous sites here in which you have density similar to what the applicant has proposed here. And that is why this is an appropriate location for the board to consider a comprehensive plan update and to change the zoning.
Ms. Carbon, if I may interrupt you just for a second. So the map that you've just submitted to the board we'll deem as exhibit number 15 for purposes of the hearing? Okay.
Sounds like a fine number to me.
And I just interrupt 1 second, Mr. Carbon. I just wanted to also recognize a newly elected county legislator. I didn't mention it before. Lon Hofstein's here as well, so glad to see you here today, Lon. Go ahead, Mr. Carbon.
Our proposal, we own 20 acres. Muncie Lumber owns, I say we, it's not me, it's not my money. Muncie Lumber owns 20 acres of the 28.5 acres that are being considered as part of this potential rezoning. And we submitted to you, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board, a petition. We attached to that a number of exhibits which your council recite, and I'd just like to give the highlights, a little bit of our development proposal. I have 3 additional professionals with me here. I have John Atzel from Atzel, Skatasa, and Ziegler, who will discuss the layout of the site. He designed the site, and he will discuss that in further detail. We have Leonard Jackson here, who is our drainage engineer. Leonard was responsible over a 3-year period of working with the Rockland County Drainage Agency to develop suitable drainage for this site. And we also have Harry Baker, who is our traffic engineer, who extensively studied the impact that the rezoning and our development would have on traffic, and he submitted a report to you, which was reviewed by your planning consultant. But Mr. Baker will be happy to provide the highlights of his analysis to you, Mr. Supervisor, as well as to the members of the public that are here.
And Mr. Carbon, they'll stay around and listen to what the public has to say as well, so they can answer questions.
Well, I should certainly hope that they'll stay at least as long as I will, and I plan to hear it all out. We are proposing 210 units of construction, 10%, 192 market rate units, 18 units which will be below market units. The below market units, the 10% affordable housing set aside, will be allocated through a lottery that will be administered by either the Rockland County Housing Action Coalition or a similarly Department of Housing and Urban Development sanctioned housing lottery agency. There has always been an interest and a need to make sure that new housing is constructed is appropriately allocated throughout the community. We believe the use of a lottery, which was successful in allocating the state-funded affordable units in Spring Valley, and you had full distribution across the demographics of the Spring Valley community, and we are looking for a similar agency to administer that lottery with respect to those units that would be located in the town of Ramapo to ensure compliance with all of the fair housing regulations. We have divided our site into 6 different neighborhoods, and I want to point out the contrast when you're able to develop a parcel of this size as opposed to most of the development which generally takes place, which is on a lot-by-lot basis. When you're developing on a lot-by-lot basis, you do not have the ability that we have to create as many shared amenities. Here we've been able to create 6 separate neighborhoods. It's a planned development, each one of those neighborhoods having the parking directly for those units that are there, and each one of those neighborhoods and those housing clusters has its own playground as well. The town code requires about 7,000 square feet of a playground space for this proposal of this size. We have provided in excess of 14,000 square feet of playground space. We think it's very, very important to make sure that there are adequate recreation amenities that are available to the families that live here. So we are proud of that. We've provided parking, which we believe sufficient to address the needs of both residents and visitors. We have submitted drainage analysis, which demonstrates that we'll be able to comply with zero net runoff requirements, and Mr. Jackson will go into that in further detail as well. So I think that we have a basis in terms of the community character and the diversity of housing types in this zone, including extensive multifamily housing in each of the adjacent municipalities. If you look on the map there, the areas that are in color is multifamily housing development. So the area that is in red is multifamily housing development in the town of Clarkstown, and the area that is yellow are multifamily parcels that are located in the village of Spring Valley, and that is a larger version, Mr. Supervisor, of the map that we have distributed to each and every one of you. So evaluating first and foremost the issue of community character, it is clear that multifamily housing has a home in this particular region of the town, particularly on these municipal boundaries, based on developments that were not approved by this board, but approved by constituent bodies in the village of Spring Valley and the town of Clarkstown. With respect to the specific environmental criteria that would be applicable to your analysis, the record that we will develop tonight will demonstrate, Mr. Jackson will testify that this will not have adverse impacts on drainage, which cannot be mitigated. Mr. Baker will testify that there is no change in the level of service classification of any of the roadways that are adjacent to this municipality, and the level of traffic service will not be meaningfully impacted if the board were to adopt a zone change. And Mr. Atzel will speak through some of the site-specific issues of how we handle our circulation and the layout of our development to make sure that this meets the criteria for a planned community as well. That's a little bit of the overview of our proposal. I know there's a lot of technical information that the board requires. With your permission, I would like to invite our engineer, Mr. Atzel, to talk through the way the site is laid out, to be followed by Mr. Jackson to discuss the drainage and Mr. Baker to discuss the traffic.
Okay?
Thank you. You want to speak from here, John? We'll get them. Got the...
Just turn it slightly toward the camera so people at home can see we're out live on. Is that good, Jack? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor and the public. My name is John Atzel. I'm with Atzel, Nasher, and Ziegler with surveyors, engineers, and planners for the project. As Mr. Carbon has stated, this is a planned community with about 6 separate individual neighborhoods. The main traffic layout that we do have is the extension of Springbrook Road, which will go through to Ewing Avenue. It will be a public road. It will be a road dedicated to the town of Ramapo. It will be maintained by the town of Ramapo, and there will be no parking on Springbrook Road. Each area will have its own parking in front of the buildings, but not on the road. The units being separated will have individual parking areas designated for each unit. The 18 affordable units will be located here down in the southeast corner. We provided previous approvals were made for sewer, which will still stand, and the traffic will actually, Springbrook Road, which is actually the neighborhood that Springbrook Road is in, is about 4,700 linear feet of road with only one access point in. By bringing Springbrook Road through, we'll provide a secondary access for emergency vehicles, fire, ambulance, and police to access our site and the sites to the south of us. And, I mean, as far as the planning is concerned, we're requesting 210 units. That works out to about 10.5 units per acre, which is under the MR12 zoning that we're requesting. And the parcels along Pascack Road, the other application, I don't know if they're going to be here tonight, but they'll make their presentation. And I really think that's about it for our end of it right now.
Okay. And who's going to speak next? Mr. Jackson on the drainage? Okay. Are you guys going to talk the entire time so we do presentation? Are you going to talk the entire time so we do presentation? Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's always a job to try to make drainage sound very interesting. Let me start out by saying that 41 years ago, my first municipal client was the town of Ramapo. I did a flood control job on Rensselaer and Greenridge Way, and so far it seems to be working. About 25 years ago, as a consultant to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, I studied the Pascack Brook and all the other major rivers in Rockland County. And I prepared the flood maps, which became part of the floodplain ordinance of the town of Ramapo. Recently, they were updated a couple of years ago. Since then, of course, I've studied most of the rivers in the state of New York and New Jersey and Connecticut as well. The Pascack Brook runs through this site, and the floodplain has to be dealt with, and of course, I developed that floodplain for FEMA. And in a previous version of this particular project, we analyzed it and we made sure that the houses in the city, on the site would be safe, and of course, we would have no impact downstream, because one of the major rules is that you can't increase flooding as a result of your project. And that's what's going to happen with this project if it's approved in this particular format. Since that time, there have been other regulations which state that you can't decrease the quality of the water, and that's a New York State DC requirement, and that's done by various methodologies which we've looked into. The resultant being that if this project is approved and developed the way it's proposed by the developer, we will not increase flooding on anyone. The project will be safe. The water quality will remain high, and we will conform to all the requirements with regard to drainage. I've looked at the project, and of course, I worked on this project with the Rockland County Drainage Agency. It was approved in a different format. I think that that approval still is valid, and most of the infrastructure that pertains to detention and so forth will be maintained in a different configuration. But the upshot is that when this project is developed, it will not have any deleterious effect on anyone. I think finally, when this board makes the decision in terms of a secret determination, it will find there will be no significant adverse impact, which of course what has to happen for any project. But the upshot is, I believe the project in this configuration will certainly conform to all the laws. It will not hurt anybody. It'll be an asset to the community. And I say that having studied this particular river and this project over many years. And that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Carbon, anybody else who wants to speak?
Mr. Harry Baker, who prepared a extensive traffic analysis, which was reviewed also by our planning consultant. And so Mr. Lang will be able to speak to that, but I'd like Mr. Baker to do the highlight.
Okay. After Mr. Baker's presentation, we'll go right to the public and let the public come up and speak. And just to let people know, when the public speaks, we have no time frame on the amount of time you want to take and speak. You can speak for as long as you like. We always would ask that people would take 5 or 6 minutes, and if they still feel the need to talk, they could speak again later, just because there are a lot of people that like to speak. But we'll have Mr. Baker.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I should clarify, since we have 2 separate petitions before us this evening by adjoining landowners, I think we should have the second applicant make its presentation, and then we should open up to the
I
public.
didn't see their attorney. Was their attorney Mr. Nakata?
I don't think he's here, but they do have a representative
Oh,
here.
okay. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. My name's Harry Baker. I'm a practicing traffic engineer for about 35 years. I've worked a lot in Rampo, town of Clarkstown, and all throughout Rockland County and other places. I was asked to study the traffic conditions for this project, and there are a couple things that we did. The first thing we did was we went out and counted the existing traffic from 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon, as well as a midday Sunday, to look at the conditions, certainly during the weekday when people travel back and forth to work, and also on Sunday when people are traveling also. We looked at the area surrounding the project, the specific intersections. Just bear with me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
The specific intersections that we looked at were Ewing and Pascack Road, Pascack Mirror Lake Road and Northbrook Road, Pascack and Forest Brook and Springbrook Road. People went out, we had people out there counting traffic. They counted both the cars, trucks, and buses, so we know the mix of the traffic. We have the school buses in there and any other buses that were traveling. Based on the existing data, we calculated the level of service for which is the operational, how the intersections operate. Level of service A is the best, level of service F is the worst. For the base condition, everything operated at levels of service A and B during the time periods. The morning peak was 7:15 to 8:15 and 5 to 6 in the afternoon. And the morning peak is early because people are getting out early to head to the city or to Westchester and other places as well. And the same conditions were on the weekend. We then create what's called the no-build situation, which is the situation when in the same year that the project would open, but without the project. And basically, when we looked at those conditions, the only change that occurred was the level of service on the northbound approach at Pascack Road, at the Pascack Road, Mirror Lake Road, and Northbrook intersection in the PM peak changed from level of service C to level of service D, and that's due to the natural background growth of traffic. I used a 2% background growth rate, so basically what you do is you take the existing conditions, you grow the traffic by 2%, and then you reanalyze the traffic. And that's what you measure the build against the no build. The next step was to determine how many trips would be generated by the proposed project. I used the Institute of Transportation Engineers' 9th trip generation manual, which is the accepted practice in the industry. For this particular project with 210 units, it would generate 88 trips in the morning peak and 71 trips in the afternoon peak. These trips were assigned to the street network, and we then rerun the capacity analysis to determine what the impact is of the project, and there were no changes in the level of service. So basically, even with this additional traffic, everything stayed the same. Even the North Pascack Lake, Mirror Lake, Northbrook Road, Pascack Road, northbound approach stayed at level of service D. So basically, the project does not provide any impacts to the local street network, and that's the conclusion we came up with.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. So now we will have someone come up for the applicant for Mr. Colishaw's property.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
My name is Anthony Celentano. I'm the engineer for 171 North Pascack Road. We're the minor piece. We're 3.5 acres, and we are surrounded on 3 sides by this 22.5 acre development. And my applicant would like to be considered to be rezoned along with the rezoning of the major applicant. Presently on our site, we have existing multifamily dwellings on the site, so this would be opportune for these existing multifamily dwellings to conform to the MR12 zone. If my applicant did decide to develop, the maximum he could put on would be 36 units total. So that's, we're here just for consideration of the zone change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, as I said, we let people speak for as long as they'd like, and we'd like you to kind of keep it a little concise just so we can get everybody in a timely basis. We are going to have Mr. Holman speak first, and then Deputy Supervisor Lasker, and then we're going to have Chris Carey, because I know they have other places to go. And then after they speak, if there's somebody that has something really, an emergency at home or something with the babysitter and has to speak, then we'll certainly entertain trying to let you speak at that time. Otherwise, I'll just go through the list here that was handed to me by the clerk. Councilman Holman.
Thank you, Supervisor St. Lawrence and honorable members of the Town Board of Ramapo. My name is George Holman. I'm a councilman in the town of Clarkstown. I'm also not too far from where this proposed development is. I'm a resident of Nanuet, probably, as the crow flies, about 3/4 of a mile from the location. And I'm here tonight to just raise a few points, and I'm delighted that the supervisor was so clear in his initial instructions to all of us gathered here that there's no action taking place tonight. You know, as a councilman for the last 5 years, and prior to that 5 years on the planning board in the town of Clarkstown, I wasn't a member of any of the boards that, just listening to Mr. Carbon's presentation, that approved any of the multifamily projects in the area. Perhaps if I was, I would not have approved some of the density that's there. Just because there's density nearby doesn't mean that we have to continue that problem with additional density. One point I do just want to bring up, again, I'm just not having seen the map beforehand, but having done a little bit of review and knowing this area fairly well in the Clarkstown side, I would want to point out that I believe almost none of the multifamily projects that are in Clarkstown that have been approved are connected into single-family streets. And I think that's a major concern and a major issue that we would have. I know that Avalon Gardens has a connection, but there's a fence and a gate, and it's for emergency purposes only into Alice Drive. And the Hamlets and L'Ambiance and the other multifamily projects in that area. Again, they predate my time on the town council and my 5 years prior to that on the planning board. None of them connect into single-family neighborhoods. So I think that's a major concern. It's certainly a major concern that I have, that Councilman Borelli has, that the other members of the town board in Clarkstown have. In a little while, you'll hear from a resident. She actually drove up with me tonight, Margaret Comer. And her late husband, Jim, who passed away about 5 years ago, was actually the president of the Forest Brook Civic Association. And Jim had done an awful lot of work with the town board and with residents in that area to address some of the flooding issues and some of the concerns. A lot of work was done for sidewalks and some improvement within that neighborhood. There was also some collaborative work that took place between the town of Clarkstown with our highway department, along with Ramapo, along with Spring Valley, as it related to illegal dumping and some issues that had taken place on the Ramapo and the Spring Valley side, not too far from the subject property. So there's been good collaboration and good work back and forth. When Margaret speaks later, she's going to talk a little bit about the concerns that the residents have and the concerns that they have with flooding. And I believe, again, I'm not to put it, I know it's a difficult balancing act. I know that I went through this as a member of the planning board, and we deal with it when we have zone changes and applications that come before us on our own town board. And the consultants will get up and they'll explain about there's not going to be this adverse impact or that adverse impact, or we're going to mitigate it. But the reality is that this is a very difficult property to navigate. There's steep slopes. There are drainage and flooding issues in this area that our town has addressed. We believe that they will be adversely impacted. There's also high tension wires, and I would encourage you that as you go through this process, certainly I would recommend against it, and I would recommend no connection for whatever development that's coming through that's going to adversely impact single-family neighborhoods. And again, to reference the density as it relates to Clarkstown, it's not a fair appraisal, because if you were to go through the multifamily developments within the Clarkstown section that are referenced on the map, none of them connect. And where there is a connection, it's for emergency services purposes, and there's a gate. That's not what's recommended. That's not what's proposed here. This will have a definite adverse impact on these residents, our Clarkstown residents. It will also have an adverse impact, we believe, just by the density and I think the lack of diversity potentially. There's a significant number of bedrooms that are being proposed, and that could generate an additional number of children for the already stressed East Ramapo School District, and we share that school district, our municipalities, Spring Valley, Clarkstown, and Ramapo. And I think we need to do all that we can to ensure that the school district's not overburdened. And finally, I would just, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. I don't want to take much more time, because I know that you have a lot of other individuals that are going to get up and speak, and the residents, and you want to hear from them in particular. But I just echo the comments that were brought forward from our town board. Our town board did pass a resolution. It's part of the record here, that if you do proceed in the future with this, we absolutely believe that there will be adverse impacts, environmental impacts, and that will require a positive declaration under seeker. We also believe that, again, we're recommending against it, and we certainly wouldn't want to have the connection that's going to adversely impact our residents. But I do want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm delighted that there's no action proposed tonight. The last two things I would finish up with. There's a good number of residents that are here from the town of Clarkstown, and I would request that we've passed around a sign-in sheet with some information, and our office, the town of Clarkstown, will get the contact information of the Clarkstown residents to your office, and I'd request that myself and the other members of the town council, as well as our supervisor and any of the other residents from the town of Clarkstown that have taken the time to come out here tonight, be notified of any future meetings that take place with this project, so we can weigh in as this moves forward. Thank you.
We will take the name and address of everyone, and we will notify them. Thank you, George. Thank you, Mr. Holman. And on a personal note, thank you for the incredible work you do for people with special needs in this county, and it's really very commendable. Our next speaker is the Deputy Supervisor, Shirley Lasker.
Good evening, members of the board and members of the public. My name is Shirley Lasker, and I have been a resident in Clarkstown since 1989 and a town board member since January of 2000. I'm here in both capacities tonight. I am here speaking on behalf of Supervisor Alex Gromack, who had a conflict in his schedule and regrets he couldn't be here tonight. He did send a letter out to all the residents, and we did send a press release out opposing this project. And I'm also representing, Councilwoman Stephanie Hauser couldn't be here, so I'm also representing her as well. They wanted me to send a very strong statement against the proposed zone change for Pascack Ridge that's on the agenda tonight. Clarkstown received your referral on October 21st, and the planning board reviewed it on October 22nd. They voted to recommend against the zone change and asked that the town board oppose the proposed comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning. At our last town board meeting of November 5th, the vote was unanimous, opposing the zone change that borders our town. I've come to voice our strong objection to the town of Ramapo's proposed amendments to its zoning map and comprehensive plan. The town of Clarkstown was provided with a copy of the proposed amendments because general municipal law requires that projects within 500 feet of the municipal border be referred to the neighboring municipality. The proposed project at issue here is directly adjacent to the town of Clarkstown's border. The proposed amendments would pave the way for an extremely dense development. The Pascack Ridge subdivision that would have significant impacts on our residents. The amendments before you tonight would rezone a 28.5 acre parcel adjacent to our border from medium density residential, which currently allows less than 3 units per acre, to multifamily residential, which would allow for up to 12 units per acre, an increase in density of 400%. I think it's important that we put this into perspective. The current zoning would allow for approximately 40 single-family homes on 1/3 acre lots. The proposed zoning would allow for approximately 210 units. In addition, according to documents provided by the town, each of these units could contain as many as 4 to 6 bedrooms. Neighboring municipalities have a voice in these decisions for a reason. The impacts of such a development do not magically stop at municipal borders. The increased traffic, the exponential burden on our water supply and sewer infrastructure, the impacts on our already overwhelmed drainage and school systems, and the effect on mutual aid on our emergency service providers will be borne by our residents. I'd also like to point out that you are considering an amendment to your town's comprehensive plan to accommodate a single development. That's not what comprehensive planning is all about. Comprehensive planning requires just what it implies, a comprehensive look at all of the potential land uses within the town and the potential associated impacts. Ramapo's comprehensive plan explicitly excluded the future rezoning of this property for good reason. The town's comprehensive plan recognized that the current zoning for this area is appropriate. What is not appropriate is to consider an amendment of this magnitude without looking at the town's comprehensive plan as a whole and taking the requisite hard look under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Clarkstown's comprehensive plan is actually modeled as an environmental impact statement, one of the few in the state. The appropriate way for analyzing the potential impacts to the street network, school system, water resources, and natural environment shared by the residents of both our towns is to prepare an environmental impact statement. Those of you who know me know that I've been a longtime crusader against overdevelopment. I oppose the development of the Palisades Center Mall. I've advocated for stronger zoning laws and tougher penalties for violators, and I've championed the town's purchase of open space. I've taken these positions because I believe the residents of the town of Clarkstown cherish the single-family residential character of our town. The town of Ramapo should seriously analyze the impact on its neighbors when considering developments such as this one. Land use decisions should not and must not and cannot be made in a vacuum. This proposed development is simply too dense in relation to the surrounding single-family neighborhoods like those in Clarkstown, and I therefore implore you to reject these amendments. You should have already received, as you said, you received a copy of the Clarkstown Town Board's resolution objecting to this zone change, and as I noted, that was unanimous. So thank you for your time tonight, and I'm glad that you're not going to vote for this zone change tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Supervisor. At this time, I'd like to invite Chris Carey up. He's a county legislator, and I believe the majority leader of the county legislature, the minority leader of the county legislature.
I wish it was a majority.
I understand. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, for giving me the time. For those that don't know me, my name is Chris Carey. I am the legislator for District 9. I live in Bardonia, but I represent approximately 400 homes in Ramapo, and not right next to this location, but as my former colleague George and Shirley, when I was on the planning board, said, you don't have to be right next to it to be impacted. So I'm also a member, I'm a trustee of the Rockland County Municipal Planning Federation. That group, and actually George Holman is the president of that. That group comes together to share planning ideas, zoning ideas, and that's the place where issues like this, I think, should be worked out, and not when it comes to a project this late in the game. And I do respect Supervisor St. Lawrence saying that no decision is going to be made tonight, but this project's pretty far down the road, and I'm glad to see all the people out here tonight to get their point across. I'm also, as I said, a former planning board member in Clarkstown, and I was part of the special board that developed the comprehensive plan for Clarkstown. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the details. What my district, while it doesn't touch this project directly, decisions made here in Ramapo do have impacts in Clarkstown and the surrounding areas. It has to be taken into consideration, and what's right for Ramapo may not be what's right for Clarkstown and Rockland as a whole. I just want to add my voice to that tonight, and I strongly oppose this as designed, and I strongly oppose the amendment of the comprehensive plan. And the best way to summarize this is my former, the chairman of the planning board in Clarkstown. Succinctly put it, the proposed development of this land at a density of 12 units per acre of multifamily would result in overdevelopment, be out of character with the surrounding area, and have the potential to adversely impact the street network, school system, water resources, and natural environment, all shared with the residents in the town of Clarkstown. That, in a nutshell, speaks volumes about this project and why that we need to strongly oppose this going forward. And I hope the board is listening and gives strong consideration to not move forward with the project as designed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. I'm going to take the personal privilege of asking Margaret to come up and speak. I didn't see her name on the list. I was looking through, I didn't see her name here. It is in here? Okay. So we'll let you come up and speak, and then we'll go through the list. The next would be Mr. Robert Romanowski.
Okay, my name is Margaret Comer, and I live in 11 Forest Brook Road in Nanuet. I am against the opening of the borders between Clarkstown and Ramapo to accommodate Munsey Lumber's 40 single homes. It would ruin our quality of life, which we have built up, by working with the town of Clarkstown, by changing our mailing address to benefit the community, worked for 10 years to find the right area for our community centre, which is well used. Built our firehouse with quicker response, built up the Pascat Brook after being flooded with 7 feet of water through my home from the brook. This extra water would overflow the brook into my property, as I am the lowest point downstream. This is not a good thing. This is the 4th time that we have tried to build, that you have tried to build and open up the road. Honestly, I don't know what to say to make this any clearer. We don't want this. How many times do you have to hear this before you find a new location? This is my home, not yours. You go home you go home afterwards to your home, but mine would be forever changed. At the end of the day, I live there, and this will not only affect me, but my neighbors too. I asked the fine members of the town board, how would you feel if your neighborhood was being ripped apart? Could you stand it? I've lived at my residence for over 32 years. I have seen it change and grow, and I know this is a mistake. Please don't let it happen, and please find another location. I could go on all night about this being wrong, but I only have so long to speak. So please, hear my plea. I have been in Rockland for 32 years. I am an outstanding citizen and a senior citizen. And I care deeply for my neighborhood. Please, again, don't let this pass, for I will be the one dealing with the consequences.